When you're ready.
I'm all set.
Yeah, I knew you would be. All right. Good evening. We'll begin the meeting. It's Tuesday, May 28th of 2024. This is the Stoughton City Council meeting, and the first item of business would be the roll call.
Okay, Butler,
Present.
Lagaki,
Accounted for.
Wozniak Scanlon,
Present.
Schumacher,
Here.
Peyton.
He's absent.
Okay, thank you. Caravello,
Here.
Reeves,
Here.
Abel,
Here.
Mayaski.
Here.
Okay, I have 8 alders present. We have Peyton and Jensen and Hirsch and Sherlucky absent and excused.
All right. Thank you. We are certified of compliance with open meeting laws. The next item is we have a need for a public hearing, and this one is for, I believe, special assessments. And is there anything we'd like to discuss before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none. Let me just put something up on the screen here.
Tim, if I may,
Sure, go ahead.
just to recap for all special assessments, the city special assesses for sidewalks at 50%, curb and gutter at 50%, aprons 100% to the property owner, carriage walks and stairs in the terrace at 100% to the property owner, and all ADA ramps and ADA related items are 0% to the property owner. Tonight, if there's any specific questions for your property, I can take your name, contact number, and property address, and we can discuss with you in person any specific questions. Tonight's really to discuss what you feel the council should hear in regards to assessments and not specific items to your assessment. We're happy to discuss those with you and then go from there.
Okay, thank you. Hearing that, we'll close our regular meeting and we'll open it up for a public hearing. And let's see, is anybody here for the public hearing? I know I have 2 people signed up to speak. Is yours regarding the public hearing on special assessments? All right, you can come on up. You push the button, the red light will come on, and then you can state your name and your address for the record. And you have 3 minutes, and this isn't a back and forth, so you can state your position and your concern, and that may come up at a deliberation.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
My name is Tyson Polk. I live on 316 East South Street near South 4th Street. Regarding the special assessments, so I read the ordinance. The ordinance has a section where if you are at 175% of poverty level, which is about 26,000 right now, the city will consider paying the full amount. I'm not in that category, but I found it kind of interesting seeing that I don't think anybody in the city of Stoughton with $26,000 per year could even afford property to fall under that situation. If so, it'd be a very small amount of people. Since we're assessed 50%, like was said before, 50%, 100% of certain specific parts of the reconstruction, I would ask that since a lot of the people that live on South Street or East South Street, South 4th Street, and 5th Street, a lot of us are single income. A lot of us are, sorry, I've never done this before.
Sure.
A lot of us are fixed income households. We don't qualify for the poverty level part. However, I do feel that 50% is still a bit high. Also, I feel that generally speaking, special assessments are for improvements on the street and everything that would benefit us. Our street isn't like a standard street that has low traffic and quiet sidewalks and everything. We get 53-foot semis coming through. We get like fire trucks and ambulances and stuff. And for some reason, trucks with contractor trailers that are 2-axle come banging through there all the time. I don't understand that, but it's kind of like a second main street. So I would say we don't benefit as much from this reconstruction as other streets would. I had a third point. I completely forgot it. I should have written it down. So what I would ask is for you to consider adjusting our share of the cost from 50% to 25%. Of course, like aprons would still be 100% ours because they're ours. But like the sidewalk, the curbing, the gutter, if you could adjust that to 25%, I think a lot of the residents that are my neighbors and I would greatly appreciate it because it is quite a hit for us to take. A lot of us, like my taxes are doubled this year. I know some people whose taxes are 10 times what they are because they're on that horrible corner spot. But yeah, if you could consider that, and in addition, for those of us that can't pay the lump sum, if you could consider waiving the interest fee. I know the interest is set at 4.5%. Either waiving it or making it a very small amount, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And if I could maybe offline get your contact information.
Yes.
So this is on, I believe, for a first reading tonight, which means we would discuss it and we take action at the next meeting. And then maybe some of your questions, at least I can get answers from our city attorney before the next meeting. Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on the public hearing portion for the special assessment? Hearing none, we would close the public hearing and then reopen for our regular business. The next item would be our public comment period. And we have one person signed up to speak. Ingrid, you can come up and speak at the public comment, and you know the routine.
Hi there, I'm Ingrid McMasters. I live at 168 West Main Street. I'm a business owner there, a resident there, and I'm also the president of the Stoughton Downtown Merchants Association, so I'm representing them as well. I have sent out emails in the past regarding the parking ordinance change to be able to lease parking spaces. I'm not going to go through the emails that I sent before. That would be redundant. I hope that everybody has read the emails that I've sent. But I do want to just say, because of last meeting where we were talking about the recordable document and that the developers who are present, SCMA is in support of the property itself being updated, just not the leasing of parking spots, and that it is, in our opinion, in the best benefit of both the residents of the area, or all of the residents area, our clientele, our employees, the business owners, and the future project, residential project at 211, that you do move forward with the recordable document that would maintain the parking lot as a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak tonight at the public comment period? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to communications and presentations. And are there any communications from alders?
Tim, I'd just like to say I am, sorry, a little late, but I am present.
Okay.
But I have low bandwidth where I'm at, so I may not be able to speak all that much.
Okay, thanks for being here, and Candy can mark you present. Alderperson Lagaki.
This is the last Alder council meeting before June 8th, which happens to be, hopefully, might be a small group, but a celebration, an informal cookout at 1 o'clock at Virgin Lake Park. There's a few other activities going on too, like yoga and singers earlier in the day, but just reminding folks, you don't have it on your calendar, please know that LGBT folks, Q+, as well as our allies, all of us who love, we're going to get together. And June 1 is the beginning of Pride Month. Thank you.
Thank you. President Reeves.
And just a reminder that on June 6th, we have committee of the whole meeting at 6 o'clock. This is outside of our usual meeting time. For those of you who may be new, we'll be talking about ARPA funding requests. Hopefully, the agenda and items will come out, will definitely come out a couple days ahead, but hopefully even sooner than that. We just want to double check and make sure we have everybody's information and requests, but you'll want to take some time to review that because there are quite a few requests, and so we want to be thoughtful about having enough time to go through them and make decisions. So just a heads up to make sure that's in your calendar for June 6th at 6 o'clock, and we will meet in council chambers.
All right. Any other communications from alders? Okay, hearing none, we'll go into presentations. The first one, we have Alderperson Schumacher. Do you have a historical fact of Stoughton?
I do. I have a couple that I have lifted from the Stoughton Courier Hub. Shout out to Scott DeLarwell. He and I grew up in Green Bay together, a couple blocks apart. So shout out to the Stoughton Hub. So the fact in 1908 in May, farmers in neighboring towns are dragging the roads, which puts them in excellent shape in short order. The roads in this section are deplorable, but with the aid of a log drag could be made good. Will someone start the drag moving?
What did they say?
That was one guy.
What did he say?
They said if you have questions on your assessment or whatever, contact the individual, not do the.
All right. Yep. And then in 1973, Stoughton High School joined other state high schools in sponsoring girls' track and field teams. And in 1998, which is now 25 years ago, the city's planning commission approved the expansion of Pick and Save. The store was expanded by about half its original size. So hopefully each meeting I'll bring a couple of these in there, working with the Stoughton Historical Society and the library and that, start to dig into some interesting bits and pieces about Stoughton and bring them up at each meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, the next one is the pre-sale report from Dave Ferris from Ellers. And I'll get that queued up for you. And this we went through previously at the Finance Committee this evening. What's that?
I thought he was going to introduce something first. So.
Oh, nope.
Okay. I'll do a high-level review of the pre-sale report. We did a little more detailed review at the Finance Committee, but if there's anything in that report that you would like me to go into more detail, I'll be happy to do so. So on page 1, under purposes, we basically have a $12.9 million, almost $13 million issue. It was a little bit bigger prior to this week, but there was a couple projects with the river project that were pulled out of this one, about $2 million. So the size that we're bringing to you to consider for taking to the market is about $12.99 million. Under purposes, you've got numerous projects that are listed on page 6 of this report. I won't go into those in detail, but they're about $12.7 million of projects. Some of them are funded by the levy, a good chunk of them, and then there's some funding for stormwater projects as well as TID6 incentive for the Emmy Roth project. Under authority, once we issue this amount, if this is actually the issued amount, you'd be at about $46.6 million of debt outstanding, general obligation debt, and that's at about 52% of your limit. The limit on general obligation debt is 5% of the equalized value or the market value of all the taxable properties in the city, and you will further limit that on your behalf of of being 80% of that. So you're well within that 80% policy that you have. As far as a call feature on this debt, we have a call feature out in 2034, meaning that if there is better interest rates or maybe there is funding available, we can maybe downsize the issue and refund it with a issue that would be smaller or with better interest rates. So we'll see what happens in about 10 years. We're going to take this to a rating call with Moody's, so city staff and other staff and Moody's Investor Service will be on a call, and we'll go over the finances of the city and what's going on economically in town to see if they're happy with where you're rated at a AA2. We'll kind of gauge where we are in the world as far as moving up. Interesting enough, one of your neighbors, Fitchburg, just went to a AAA last week, so they've been working really hard to get to that. So it's something, obviously, we'd love to be moving you forward someday, and maybe we can get kind of a gauge on what it takes to move up to a AA1. So we'll have a conversation with them. Method of sale, we do this as a competitive sale, meaning that local, regional, and national underwriters have a chance to bid on your notes. And the more bids we get, the better the interest rate. So it's something that obviously we would like to have quite a few bids on this. Going on to page 3, I think most of the council has been around for this, but the last few years we have done what's called a parameter sale, which means that the city council considers basically delegating the approval of the sale to the staff. So it would be either the director of finance or controller or the treasurer. And so there's some things that are on page 3 that kind of set out what are some of those parameters are that they have to be met on sale day, or else we can't approve it. Let's see, going on to page 4. Some of the risk factors that are in place here is because we're relying on tax incremental finance or revenues and stormwater utility revenues, that if for some reason those revenues were short, that you'd have to levy a tax for those. So that's really the issue there. And let's see, the schedule of events on page 5. We're here to basically present the issue. We'll have a call with the city, and we'll go through what's called the official statement, which is really the document that is sent to underwriters to kind of make them have a feel for what kind of shape the city is in, and then place a bid. Also, maybe they wouldn't place a bid, but they'll go out and they'll have a chance to do that. We'll have that conference with a rating agency, Moody's, and then that official statement will go out the week of June 17th. If you consider and approve the staff awarding the sale on June 26th, that would happen that day. And the money would come in from the issue that was sold on July 16th, so that the city can either reimburse itself for what it's already paid out or pay for any invoices on projects that are ongoing. I do have a bunch of schedules in here. I'm not planning on going through those, but I'm happy to touch on anything. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but I'm happy to touch on anything as far as the number schedules that are in here.
All right, thank you. You're going to stick around?
Yes.
Okay, and then we do have an action item on this later, and Alderperson Schumacher will introduce it at that point.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, I understood your confusion there for a second. I forgot that the resolution was further down than when that was going to be at presentation.
Yeah, so I was anticipating you saying something, so, okay.
Okay, next item is we had the scope of engagement letter. Anything you want to touch on that, Director Ellinger?
No, just for full disclosure, this is the agreement that we have with our promissory note counsel, Quarles and Brady, about all the services that they perform and their fee structure. So again, I'm just including it for full discussion or full disclosure. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
All right, thank you. And then the next presentation is Innovation Center update to the City Council, and I'll get that queued up here.
Thanks. And I apologize, I'm not there in person. I was planning to be, but I'm a bit sick, so I didn't want to get anyone else sick.
We appreciate that. Let us know when you're ready, Katrina. I think I have
Okay.
it up there for you.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, I'm ready. So yeah, thank you all for inviting me to come speak and give an update on Innovation Center Stoughton tonight. For those who don't know me, I'm Katrina Becker, Executive Director of Innovation Center Stoughton and also Vice President of Becker Professional Services, which is a planning and community economic development firm, and we work with the City of Stoughton on various projects. You can go to the next slide. So just to kind of give a little bit of context and background for those who might not know, back in 2010, the Stoughton RDA commissioned a business incubator feasibility study. So the city at the time was exploring the possibility of establishing a business incubator in Stoughton. And this report actually found that Stoughton should establish an innovation-focused incubator, that the market in Stoughton was ready for it, that there was demand for it, and really not just a business incubator, but innovation-focused one that would be designed to reduce the cost and risk of exploring new innovative ideas by providing affordable and flexible space and by creating a hub for the network of businesses and individuals necessary to foster innovation. You can go to the next slide. Then separately, in 2013, Fab Lab Stoughton was established in Stoughton High School. So this was actually the first Fab Lab in the state of Wisconsin, which is pretty cool. But it's really a space in the high school where students are exposed to experiential learning opportunities, so hands-on learning. They learn computer-aided design programs, 3D printing, laser cutting, and engraving, putting together circuit boards, lots of different things. And local employers were really starting to see students then graduating with more STEM or science, technology, engineering, and math skills, more technical experience in some of these machines that were in demand at some of these local companies, as well as skills in critical thinking, design thinking, problem solving, and creativity. You can go to the next slide, please. So I really feel that the idea for Innovation Center Stoughton kind of came from both of these two separate, but I think related concepts and things that happened. And so in 2018, the idea for Innovation Center Stoughton was born. There, since the Fab Lab was started, there had been demand from local community members, local entrepreneurs, and businesses that were really interested in getting access to the Fab Lab and the equipment, and getting support with starting their business or help prototyping. And the Fab Lab, as it is in Stoughton High School, couldn't help support businesses, and it really wasn't designed for public access. So again, there was this idea for a community-based innovation center. Since then, in 2019, we received our first funding from the Wallene Foundation. 2021, Board of Directors was established, and we got our 501c3 nonprofit status. 2022, we received some ARPA funding from the City Council. Thank you. And then in 2023, I was brought on just as a part-time contract executive director. You can go to the next slide. So really what the Innovation Center is we exist to foster innovation, technical literacy, entrepreneurship, and creative learning. We're a community collaborator, so we're building out a network of resources and encouraging making new connections, ideas, skills, and experiences. And our vision statement really is we envision a future where everyone has the opportunity to engage with cutting-edge technology, explore their interests and ideas, cultivate new skills, and ignite their entrepreneurial spirit. We think this is important because the pace of technological change is increasing. local, since there's a big manufacturing focus here in the area, and a lot of companies are moving towards automation. And there's a new set of skills that's being required, and it's people that understand like robotics and programming, as well as how to actually do the like welding or kind of the typical manufacturing skills. So it's kind of a unique combination of new skills in addition to like AI and other things that are really becoming in demand. Go to the next slide. So this is kind of what we're working towards, really. So we want to have a maker space, so a hands-on collaborative space with shared equipment, where people can have memberships too. We want to have business incubation, so that's space, coaching, other shared services, and networking for startups and growing companies. We want to offer prototyping, so someone with an idea can come to us, and we have people that can come and help you turn that idea into proof of concept. Different technology workshops for people who want to learn to use this technology. Guided whiteboards, which are really like design thinking workshops or facilitated workshops to help identify solutions to problems. Entrepreneurs Network, so a cohort-based program and network of peer-to-peer learning for entrepreneurs and business owners that connects them to workshops and mentors and other resources to help them grow their businesses. Various community events, which I'll talk about, and then other kinds of different training programs. You can go to the next slide. So just an update kind of on where we're at and our progress to date. So we kind of started off in 2021 by partnering with UW-Madison's University Year program. So that was a 3-year program that matched a community with student UW-Madison classes that can work on different projects for that community. So over the course of 3 years, we had 9 different class projects working on various aspects of helping us think through the Innovation Center. And then there were a couple more just kind of community Stoughton-focused projects as well. We've done a lot of public engagement and speaking with community members. Also part of the University Year program, students did a lot of community interviews and getting feedback from community members. We've, participated in the Community Expo, presented at Chamber of Commerce, Lunch and Learn, Rotary, presented to school district. This past weekend for Cent de Mai, we did a fun pop-up experience that we partnered with the local company called the Virtual Foundry, which actually invented a filament, metal, glass, and ceramic filament that can be 3D printed on any 3D printer. And we 3D printed some metal gnomes and did a drawing to give away some of those gnomes. And so that was a really engaging, we had a 3D printer running in the window, and it drew people in. And we've, another big thing we've done is done a lot of research and looked at really great example organizations of what we're working towards and took learnings from them. We've developed, created and launched, 4 different programs, and then took on the Children's Business Fair, and then brought Remake Learning Days to Stoughton this year as well. And then we've done a lot of planning and grant writing and relationship building. So we have a solid business plan now. We've actually written 2 federal grants, a state grant, actually 2 state grants, just submitted another federal funding opportunity, and then are working on a couple more. And then have kind of built out some additional capacity. So we're working with marketing and strategy consultant, an operations person, and then just got a summer intern actually from one of our UW-Madison classes. So that's super exciting. You could go to the next slide. These are just some fun pictures I wanted to share. A couple of these are from the Children's Business Fair, and then a few of them are from Remake Learning Days, which I'll talk about more in a second. And then another one is from our Entrepreneurs program. You can go to the next one. Yep, and just some more examples of some classes. You can go to the next one. Yeah. And you can go to the next one. Okay, so just some kind of highlights of the impact, or some high-level highlights that we've had so far. So one really cool thing is that we had a tour, and what we call an innovation tour at the Virtual Foundry. And they actually ended up connecting with someone who participated in that tour, who's now an investor in their company, which is super exciting. We've in total created and implemented different events in the past year or so that have engaged over 250 people. I recently presented to 7 different middle school business student classes about the Innovation Center, entrepreneurship in general, and then the Children's Business Fair. In 2023, our first year doing the Children's Business Fair, it had the highest number of registrations. A few 3D design workshops that we've done so far have sold out, which is super exciting too. And participants, I've just seen kind of different connections that they've made, and people asking when we're having more workshops. We had some first-time events in Stoughton for Forward Fest, which is a kind of a Madison area-based tech startup festival, and then Remake Learning Days, which is a experiential learning focused festival. And then for Remake Learning Days, which was this past April, we partnered with local businesses to host 11 free events open to community members, and we got about 115 people participating in those. Go to the next slide. So just kind of what we're looking forward to this year and next year. So our goals are really kind of building out and cementing this entrepreneurs program and network. We're continuing to kind of retool and implement our guided whiteboard workshop. We're conducting technology workshops using Fab Lab Stoughton, community events like Remake Learning Days and the Children's Business Fair. And then we're looking for actually looking to lease a kind of an interim space in the fall this year. And so that's exciting. So we really want to get our own space. So right now we don't have our own space necessarily. We've been really focused on building out some programming, trying some different things, and utilizing existing spaces in the community before moving into getting our own space. But we feel like we're ready now to move into a leased space. And with that, we will start to build out some machinery and equipment, so then we can kind of create, offer memberships and do more programming, and as well as building out our volunteer program. Here, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, I kind of mentioned this, but our goal with the leased space is to really create like a microcosm of what we hope to be at full scale. So ultimately, our goal is to have our own building, to be able to have, training space, the maker space, business incubation spaces, event space, and things like that. But we're kind of working up towards that. So this leased interim space is our kind of pilot for figuring out exactly what we'll need for that longer term, more permanent space. You can go to the next slide. And then since we are we're actually considered a public charity, our 501c3 status, so we need at least a third of our income coming from what's considered public support. So that's like smaller donations, smaller grants. So based on that, our long-term funding strategy is really a third from that public support, a third-ish from generated revenue, so like membership, program fees, prototyping fees, different kind of services, fee for services, and then another third from larger, what we're calling institutional donors. So hoping to fund like all of our equipment through some larger grants and different things like that. You can go to the next slide. This is just kind of an example of potentially how, the pieces that might make up our generated revenue. Go to the next slide. And then these, I won't necessarily go through in detail because it's kind of a lot, but they're in your packet. You can read through them. It's just kind of more information about each of our programs and services that we have created right now and that we're planning to offer in the future. You can keep going. It's and then I just added a definition of a makerspace in there. You can keep going to the next slide too. And then if anyone is interested, I'm happy to share our kind of full flesh out business plan as well. And you can keep going. Yeah, I think that is all that I have then. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Katrina? You answered all their questions, apparently.
Perfect.
All right, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to Katrina or myself as a board member. I'll be happy to make sure you have the information. But you can see we've been busy. We have a pretty ambitious schedule ahead of us, and we're hoping to continue to grow the program. Okay. That's it for communications and presentations. We have a number of items in the consent agenda, and I really wanted to highlight a couple, and certainly Candy can help me on this. Item D is kind of a new license for the dispensary. That is in there. There was some law changes that created that, and certainly Rick is involved with that as well. And then item E, we have a temporary Class B for the Stoughton Fair, and there's people here from the fair tonight if you have any questions for them. But I just wanted to highlight those. Those are somewhat unique to us. Anything you want to add, Rick or Candy, to either one of those?
I can just provide a few comments on the vaping license. So this was created in March, I think, of this year, or came into effect in March of this year. So historically, it's just been tobacco and cigarette licenses that the city issues, but the legislature has now created this third category for vaping devices. So it falls in the same the same category as the tobacco and cigarettes. There's really not much discretion that the city has in its current ordinances or by state law what it can do for these types of licenses. Potentially there's cities interested in regulating vaping shops. It can be done through zoning, but we would need to make some adjustments to the zoning code.
If somebody would like us to pursue that, you can reach out to us or Alderperson Jensen, and we can put it on a public safety agenda item. And then the other one is for the Stoughton Fair. Is there anything you want to say regarding the fair, as long as you're here? No, I don't think there is, but this is a good time for you to give free advertisement. You can turn on the mic there. Push the red button there, Joe. Yeah, the light will come on. There you go.
I got it now.
Yep.
It's something new for our fair to explore as far as bringing in more revenue. I believe it passed the safety committee already.
Yep.
Is there any questions as far as anything I can hopefully answer for you guys? If none, then that's it.
Okay. So yeah, there's no issues. The chief doesn't have any concerns, but we just really wanted to highlight it since it's something new for the fair. and we encourage people to go to the fair. I go every year and always have a good time, and there's a few new things there. I know that you're doing some dog shows I noticed this year. That sounds pretty interesting. So see if you can teach an old dog some new tricks. So that'll be at the fair, as well as some live music. So I noticed that you have a couple more bands this year, so I think that's exciting, as well as the traditional FFA and tractor pulls and things like that. So certainly encourage council members to go down there and see what it's all about. It's more than and just the midway, which obviously kids enjoy that as well. So that's coming up the week that includes July 4th. I forget which the first day is this year. The second is the Tuesday, and the 4th is on Thursday. There will be fireworks that night that are sponsored by the city, the fair. The chamber is involved with the fireworks as well. So that's a good community event that's going to be going on that week. So we encourage you all to go to that. Other than that, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Would anybody like anything acted on separately from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is number 6, ordinance 8 of 2024. This is a second reading from Public Safety, and I believe we're going to have Alderperson Legacki introduce this one.
This is ordinance number 8 of 2024 to amend section 70-180, no parking, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Public Safety recommends approval, and I would like that date introduced, the May 22nd to become May 28th.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Abel. And any discussion from you, Alderperson Legacki?
Pretty clear, we're just adding, amending the no parking ordinance section of this particular, for this area of Glacier Moraine Drive between Williams Drive and 441 Glacier Moraine Drive. I think it was well discussed.
Yeah, we had the 2 requests, one from Emmy Roth and then one from some business owners in the business incubators there. And we toured it with our city planner, Chris, and we determined that the best course of action would be to allow parking on the south side there, because there is sidewalks there, and then they can cross onto the sidewalk into the sidewalk that leads into Emmy Roth, as well as the sidewalk that's in front of the incubators. And we put the 3 to 5 parking restriction on there because we want to make sure that we're not having overnight storage on the road, and allow snowplow removal easily, and it accommodates the hours that the businesses requested to have the parking available. Any questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item also came from Public Safety, Alderperson Legacki.
This is ordinance 10 of 2024 about 10-minute parking. We want to amend section 70-197. We recommended approval. If you go a little further, it's very clear that that doesn't need to be part of the motions. I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that? Alderperson Butler, second. Alderperson Legacki, anything you want to add?
We're amending. Second point. Southernmost parking stall on the west side of South 4th Street. It's sort of right in front of the bodybuilders building. And it's really to allow the safe transportation of children.
All right. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Next item is Ordinance 9, this one also came from Public Safety Alderperson Legaki.
This one has had lots of discussion. This is ordinance 9 of 2024 to create section 70-204 to allow for municipal lot parking lease. I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Abel. Alderperson Legaki, any discussion?
You know, the public petitions, the commentary, I think we're all very well informed. The only thing I kind of want to put out there was when we left the last council meeting, there was very interesting discussion going on in the hallway. I loved it. I don't know if there's any updates or comments that people want to make since that time. It wasn't alders. It was involved parties really doing and discussing. I was happy to see that. I don't know if anybody is curious about what that was or want to ask for that. I don't know what happened. But that is all I have to say at this time.
All right. Attorney Mancy?
Yeah, I don't need to jump the line if anybody wants to go ahead of me, but so at the last meeting, there was the discussion about this ordinance or doing like a deed restriction. So at the end of the agenda, we do have a proposed deed restriction as an alternative, where it would be maintaining the parking lot as a public parking lot. It would be an agreement with the developer of 211 South Water Street, so there would be some enforcement rights that they would have because it's an agreement with them. But those are sort of the potential options that the council could choose tonight. So if the council is not interested in passing the ordinance but is interested in the deed restriction, that's still a conversation we can have at the end of the agenda.
So I think the council has three options at this point. You could approve it, deny it, or you could postpone it. And then we have the other action item later. But I didn't know if you want to have a deliberation. Certainly could open it up for discussion at this point and see whether or not you want to take action on this one. Alderperson Nail?
I thought part of where we left this off was the developer was going to go back to their lender to see if this was a viable option. Do you guys have an update on that piece of it?
Yeah, I'll be brief. We discussed with Rick as well, but yes, the lender would consider the deed restriction as a viable option.
Answers your question? Okay. Alderperson Butler?
So, Attorney Manthe, if we were to pursue the deed restriction, would that have to go through an ordinance, have two readings, et cetera?
No, we wouldn't have to do an ordinance for it. One of the reasons behind the ordinance in this case was to create sort of a framework to guide the decision-making process. The deed restriction is more or less just an agreement, so it's not set by ordinances that you create, or it's basically governed by property law or contract law.
So the way it would work is if we chose to do that, you would file something with Register of Deeds?
Yes. So what we have in the packet tonight is a draft agreement. There are some things we would need to potentially negotiate. That's why we have a potential closed session on there. But so when let's say we get a finalized deed restriction, like I said, it's more or less, it's an agreement between the city and the developer. If that is approved, it would be executed and then recorded against the parking lot property. So it would be a deed restriction for 30 years, basically obligating the city to maintain the parking lot as a parking lot with so many spaces available.
That answer your question? Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments at this point? Go ahead.
Sorry. So my other follow-up question would be would this like, I don't know, for some reason in 20 years from now we decide to switch to like paid public parking spaces or something like that, would that restrict us from being able to do that in this specific lot?
No, so the current agreement has a provision that says the city can charge reasonable fees for use of the parking lot. So that was an internal discussion I had with the mayor to see if, make sure we wanted to have that in place. But I guess the agreement's not set in stone, so like we can still talk about things in closed session if there are provisions that are important to council members.
Alderperson Payton?
I won't beleaguer or belabor the point. Alder Abel brings up a good point about the future. I am, as much as I know this is an alternative for the restrictive covenant, I'm not in favor of locking the city into its designs that tightly for 30 years. We could have growth, we could have changes in different downtown buildings, we could have even more interest in parking spaces. We may even have a point where in order to build more parking, we have to lose that parking lot, and the restrictive covenant would not allow us to do that without some type of amendment or legal process to change that up. So I'm in favor of the lease and not in favor of the restrictive covenant.
Okay. Is there anything in the covenant that would give us the flexibility to address some of the issues that Alder Payton discussed?
Not as drafted. There could be a provision, and again, it's all subject to negotiation, but we could add something to potentially address those concerns. But again, it would be subject to agreement with the developer.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Alderperson Legaki?
I find myself wondering if I would like to table this. I was hoping that the new deed wouldn't lock the city in as much, but I'm definitely more in favor of that as a potential avenue, but these details are not quite worked out yet. And totally, a part of me, a lot of work has been done. I don't know if it makes sense to vote on this while we're still in process with the deed. And so I think I might want to put out there, if everybody thinks it's a good idea, that we table this current amendment as is.
Yeah, and I think best practice would be a vote to postpone rather than table.
Let's have a vote to postpone. Yes, it is. I so move.
Is there a second? Okay. So a motion to postpone, you can have discussion. A motion to table, you can't. So
Thank you.
I guess what I would be looking for clarification is you're looking to postpone the vote on this issue. We do have a separate agenda item on the deed, so we would be discussing that later with the potential of going into closed session. I think as part of that discussion, if you're not comfortable taking a vote at that point, you could certainly give us direction so we could come back with something, or you could give us direction to draft something and see whether or not it's acceptable to the developers. That would be a later on discussion, but I just want to see if that's accurate before we take a vote on this.
Yes, I believe that's accurate. It would just be postponing the ordinance, and we would still be discussing the potential deed restriction, and could potentially get more direction either in open session or coming out of closed session there.
And I would imagine it will be clear to us if we go into closed session, if we need to reopen because we need to revisit this tonight, or if we would bring it to the next council meeting. I think that will determine. I think that is potential of what could happen.
Yeah, and I would just say that I'm sure the developers would like a decision probably sooner than later because they're trying to line up contractors and such, to start the project. So I don't want to speak for them, but certainly that's what I've heard in the past. So if that's something you want to address either now or later on before we potentially go into closed session, you're welcome to do that. I have Alderperson Payton has his hand raised.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Mayor, that we want to be respectful of the developer's time as well. This has been a discussion now for a while. I think we're starting to have a track record of maybe over deliberating on some things, but it is good to be thorough. I think as a reminder, this is an ordinance that can be adjusted and changed according to our future needs, whereas a restrictive deed will not. The restrictive covenant is pretty locked in and harder to change. But with this ordinance tonight, I think it's going to be, it could be fairly easy and up and down vote because we've had a lot of discussion about what the ordinance is. I understand the idea of wanting to pursue the covenant or review it even more or even further, but I wouldn't delay the vote on the ordinance much longer. One more meeting might be all we really should do, and then we should just decide whether we're going to have it or not.
Okay, and I would just add to that, the ordinance tonight really only allows us to consider having a negotiation on the terms of the lease. It's possible that the terms of the lease may be similar to the deed restriction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair assessment. The ordinance would just create the framework and still negotiate the lease, whether it's parking stalls, rent, what have you. So it wouldn't bind the city to take any action.
All right, did you have a question, Alderperson Abel?
For clarity too, is this would be if we pass this ordinance, this would be giving us the opportunity, creating the opportunity to also go into parking lot or parking space leases with other developers in the future as well, correct? And
Correct.
Not just a one-off situation.
That's correct. There are certain parameters set by the ordinance, right? Regarding like it has to be a multifamily development, but and geographic location, but that's correct.
Okay, cool.
Alderperson Lagaki.
Question for Attorney Manthe. Who are all the possibilities that leases of parking spaces could be open to from the city? Is it just developers?
So that's a discretionary question, I guess, for the council. So like as drafted, it's for, I believe it's like the owner of a multifamily building, and it's got to be for at least 5 spaces. I think between 5 and 18 or something along those lines. But that language could be changed depending on the direction the council wants to go. So it's not limited to developers, but essentially anybody that, yeah. It is. Let's face it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderperson Majewski.
So you could theoretically lease out the entire lot?
Not based on the ordinance. We have limitations up to no more than 20 parking spaces.
Is that per
Per
developer?
lot.
Or is that for the lot itself?
For the lot itself.
All right.
No fewer than 5 and no more than 20.
And the developer right now is asking for how many?
It was 18 at one point. I don't know if we're still at 18 or if you're looking at 17.
So
17. 17, and we're, with the relocation of the dumpster, we think we're going to add 5. So the net is 12.
But 17 spaces would be permitted,
Yes.
which would leave 3 for the other 5-unit multifamily developer. Which is basically a lease for one developer right now. To basically take all the spaces within.
For this lot, yes. And then what we tried to do is for other people that are already there in existing multifamily, we've freed up the overnight on-street parking. So that's another opportunity for them that actually, instead of parking in the parking lot, they could park in front of the place where they're living, which is closer and you could argue potentially safer, because they don't have to walk as far. Any other questions or comments? So we have a motion to postpone. So all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay, just real fast. Alder Majewski brings up a good point about the capacity of the parking lot. However, part of this also is the ordinance can, again, change in the future. So if we need to expand it to more lots to be considered in order for leasing, that's one. For more spaces to lease, that's two. I know that's kind of doomsday for a lot of people to consider, is leasing out more and more of a public lot. But we also, on the other hand, could be making more available. Leases are adjustable according to lease terms and lease years. So although they may be leasing out 17 spaces in this current lease, which isn't even written yet, in the next 2-year term of that lease or 3-year term of that lease, they could then say, we are not seeing people wanting to lease or purchase the permits for them or purchase the spaces. So they may reduce it down to 14 or 12. So with the ordinance, it gives some framework, as Attorney Manthe has said, for any type of discussion across all of the public parkings in downtown and any of the multi-housing that can be considered in the future for this area. So there's some flexibility built into the way that we've come to this question today.
Yeah, and as you might recall in Plan Director Chris's plan report, she suggested that this would be kind of a pilot because we would have the opportunity to expand on it later. We really didn't want to go all in on it now because there might be some unintended consequences to doing that, but we would certainly be open to evaluating that on a later date and potentially expanding it if the council so chose. Alderperson Legacki.
What would that process be to, if, let's say this were to be voted on and passed, and it currently only allows developers, which I think is exclusionary. If we wanted to be more inclusive, I think we open up to business owners who have been so strongly about this. And why is it? And I do believe that we need more affordable housing, but this price is very high. I don't feel that we are quite ready to do that with just only having developers in this current ordinance.
Yeah, I think the reason we came up with the concept was the bank was looking for some assurances to make sure they maintain their rental capacity in order to be able to make their payments. So the lease was really the option that we came up with as staff. Certainly the deed is the second option that has surfaced since then. It's always nice to have options. And at the end of the day, you know, we worked through with the developer to create the TIF district, to approve the general development plan as well as the specific implementation plan. So this is really kind of the last step in the process to get this project going. So that's why I mentioned earlier, I think, you know, they would like, you know, a decision on one, the other, or neither, so they can move forward or not. So, you know, that's why, you know, we're here tonight, and that's why we followed up on the council's request to come up with that other option. It sounds like either one of them would be acceptable to the developers. So it's really up to you all to figure out what direction you want to go.
I'd like to call the question on my motion.
Okay, so if you're making a motion to call the question, I would need a second, and that would be a 2/3 vote. Okay, so there's a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And I don't think we can have a discussion on that, if I remember my Robert's rules correctly. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion easily carries by a 2/3 vote. So the question is whether or not we should postpone the vote on this item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Was that 1 or 2 nays?
Nay.
3 nays. So the motion.
I'm a nay.
Okay, so the motion to postpone is approved. What do you have, Candy? There's 9 of us here. 6-3, does that sound right?
I have 2 no's. Did I miss a no?
I had Peyton, Wozniak, Scanlon, and Majewski were all no's. Is that correct?
Okay, that would be
for
correct,
it.
then I
I'm
did
for
not
the
get my.
Tom was for it. It's 2.
No, it's 3. I
Oh,
voted
it's
no,
Butler.
too. Yeah.
Oh, I knew there was 3.
Okay.
So it was Butler, Wozniak, Scanlon, and Peyton voted no on the motion. So that motion
Okay.
does carry. So that'll take us to the next item, which is number 9. And that one is the promissory notes that came through the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is Resolution 79, 2024, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $12,990,000 general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024A. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Majewski. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is what Dave has wonderfully presented to us. The schedule was included in there, or I think in here also, of what is going to take place thereafter about when the bonds go out to market, and then when they are approved and come back, and then we approve the final rates and amounts on them.
Okay, you want to speak to that? So we're using the parameter system.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
the parameter system would be, what the resolution says is that you would delegate the approval to the staff for the sale on June 26th. So as it would normally do, Dave would be the signer on that day. It would not come back to council for approval at that point, because you would delegate that tonight.
I think what they would come back with is the communication of the results.
Yeah, so we'll have a sale day report that'll be available after the sale, and if the council does want us to present the sale results, we can do that if you'd like us to. So.
That's what I meant.
All right. All right, any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. We're on item number 10. Item number 10 is a first reading on ordinance 11 of 2024. And this is on the attorney appointment. And this one came from finance as well, Alderperson Schumacher.
This is ordinance 11 of 2024. The ordinance would amend section 2-166 of the Stoughton Code of Ordinances related to the city attorney appointment. First reading on here, and this just covers that we have, at least within council, we do a 1-year sort of affirmation of the attorney, even though we do have we usually have multi-year contract set up with the attorney. But we say we've got a 3-year contract, but we have to reapprove the 3-year contract 3 times each year. So the discussion on it was about when we do this. Do we do this as a calendar year, or we do this as part of fiscal year and or council reorganization? This past year, we affirmed the attorney at council reorganization, so we'd like to continue on through during council reorganization. But again, still with the annual update of the 3-year contract, or 5-year, or however many years we have them running.
Clear as mud, huh? I'm glad you had to explain that and not me. Any questions about it? City attorney doesn't seem to be concerned about it.
Yeah, I'm not taking up any position on the ordinance. The statutes do require you to appoint a city attorney, so it's up to you as a city to decide how you want that appointment process to look. You can do it annually on January 1st. You can do it annually at your reorg meeting. You can do it every 3 years or however often you want. It's totally within your discretion. Yes, I mean, the statute just says you have to appoint a city attorney, so you could make the appointment valid for the life of the contract.
We've always done it that way. My favorite phrase.
Or you could do that, or you could send it back to committee. I mean, it doesn't really matter to us. Either way, we're going to have an attorney. He's going to get paid. Whatever you guys want to do.
And I guess just so you don't, I always feel like these, like the service agreement is sort of at will. So even if you appoint somebody for 3 years, if you think I'm doing a terrible job, you could back out at any time, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't want you to feel like you're locked in by any means.
All right. President Reeves?
So even though I'm on the finance committee, now I find myself trying to remember exactly what happened, but can you remind me, Finance Director Ellinger, do we, if it was on a calendar year, did it come for approval, or was it just sort of a rollover event and just sort of an, just like an automatic renewal?
A high-level recap, when I saw the ordinance said calendar year approval, and the fact that we didn't ever do that, I thought, okay, let's just get rid of the ordinance. We drafted a resolution to that effect. Common Council said, no, we're returning this to finance because we want to do it at the organizational meeting. Therefore, I drafted the ordinance to have the annual approval at the organizational meeting.
So I think if I remember right, I think what, in our conversations, I don't think we wanted necessarily an automatic renewal per se, and I'm speaking with my personnel hat on, in that we like to make decisions and policies based on protocol rather than people. So even though we like this attorney very much, we like to make something, some sort of plan in the event that maybe it wasn't Attorney Manthe here, and we could, the council could chime in at the reorg meeting if there was some sort of reason why the attorney was no longer a good fit. So I think that might have been our rationale. At least that's what I'm coming up with at the moment. So we really had a look-see at our attorney in the event that there was a conflict or some reason why we wanted to make a different decision. So that's my recollection anyway.
And if you left the firm, we'd have to reappoint somebody else, right?
Yes, I suppose that's correct.
So what do you all want to do? I mean, it's the first reading, so it'll be back. But if you want to think about it some more when it comes back, if you want to approve it, great. If you don't, we'd be looking for some direction. How's that sound?
And then instead of we've either always done it that way, we've always never done it that way, all the time. Does that make more sense?
Who's on first, Brett?
Exactly.
All right, then we'll just move on to the next item, which is ordinance 12. And that one also came from Finance Committee for first reading, I believe.
Yep. This is ordinance 12 of 2024. This ordinance would amend sections 2-647 through 2-649 Stoughton Code of Ordinances related to special assessment. And this is the first reading of this. Down in the struck out text, that was one that Tyson was referring to before, where we've got the Wisconsin statutes in here and of taxes being covered with under the severe financial hardship. And Dave, if I recall, I think those are no longer there, I believe.
Correct. And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but our ordinance refers to a statute that used to exist in the Wisconsin statutes, but was repealed in '86. So there's nothing to allow us to do anything for indigent personnel. And our city attorney has opined that with the uniformity clause in the Wisconsin Constitution about property taxes and special assessments, we could not make this exception for anybody.
Yeah, so that's correct that the statute that created this program was repealed in the 80s. So there's really not a statutory basis for this program. Property taxes do have to be uniform under the Wisconsin Constitution. So even if you wanted to create a property tax exemption for indigent persons, you would literally be prohibited from doing that on the property tax basis, because the Wisconsin Constitution requires that all taxes be uniform. So potentially there would be an avenue for special assessments, but it would require some, I guess, further analysis on what that program might look like, because there are potential equal protection issues under the Wisconsin and U.S. Constitution. So it would just need to be very carefully crafted in how that program would go about if you're looking at creating exceptions for the special assessment program.
We have had special assessments as a future agenda item. We've been kind of working at it a little bit for quite a while in Finance Committee, but we'll continue to work at that.
Okay, any questions on this one? It's a first reading. If you do, on any of the first readings, please send them my way, and I can try to get you and everybody else on the council the answers before you're anticipated to take a vote on it at the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to the next item.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
What would be the steps to put a group together to carefully deal with the special assessments if it's prohibited according to tax law? Special assessment law is different?
Yes, so although special assessments go on the tax bill and they're legally distinct from a property tax, though. So you do have some flexibility with special assessments, but we would still need to make sure that the way that we're applying it is not treating people differently without some sort of rational basis. And there are certainly policy goals that are admirable for the current ordinance, right? But I would have questions about whether or not we could actually enforce it in its current form.
So is this something that could be at, if it's special assessments, does that sit in public work? And could this be a subgroup of public works to begin this discussion to create avenues for people who might not be able to afford expensive cement work?
Yeah,
I can let
go ahead.
Rick or Dave answer. I would think it would be more of a finance issue, but Dave, did you have a thought about it?
Well, yeah, I think it would be more of a financial issue because we're potentially waiving any revenues. But if we can find some way to have a council and the city attorney craft language, I have a plethora of questions that I proposed to the Finance Committee about how to implement it. So this would not be something that could quickly be answered.
Thank you for that clarity of finances and, perhaps my views. I see people getting medical care all of the time with crazy expensive and insurance, and there are programs in place of financial assistance that can, based upon all of the data they supply, that they can. And I do believe that if we don't have municipality examples, I believe they exist out there in the community. And this is one of those areas. Sidewalk, come on, this stuff gets us every time. Medical care, these are the expensive parts of living. I would like to have finance begin that discussion, and I'd be open to being part of that.
I'm not disagreeing with you that there are programs out there, but we have to decide what is considered household income. Is it taxable income? Is it taxable income under the Obamacare, the American Affordable Care Act? Is it taxable income as by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue for homestead credit? Each one of those things has to be considered. This isn't an easy question. So I can almost guarantee this will not be solved before the next special assessments go out. I'm not adverse to having finance talk about it. As Brett Schumacher indicated, this has been on the agenda for a long time. So it's not going to be an easy question for the council to wrestle with.
Alderperson Majewski.
Our annual discussion about special assessments, by the way. And here's one that we've asked this once or twice before and watched people's heads pop off their shoulders. We'd have asked finance to find out what the impact would be to repeal the special assessments altogether and not have them. Why do we have special assessments? That question's unanswered either. We have people, please, we have people who come in here every year who are looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for their special assessments. We're talking sometimes 14,000 plus in a given year, and we give them a whole 3 years to pay that off, and we give them a generous 4% interest rate. Why are we at 50%? Why aren't we at 25%? Why aren't we at 10%? Why are we at 50%? Let's face it, it's the right of way. It's not, we make everybody pay for the carriage walk and their apron, but the rest of the right of way is ours. It's not ours. It is the city's. It's all citizens. So why do we have special assessments? That question is never answered, and the best answer I can get is because then we can even do more projects. Well, we could do less projects and have less impact on the individual citizens that we have, who are unfortunately having to have their streets redone. Questions that need to be answered that aren't being answered. So there's one for the Finance Committee.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to get them answered tonight, but
No.
certainly I think you have some feedback, so, we can put that on the agenda and work on that. It might
We've
even
already
take us-
been discussing, we've already been discussing some of the things Alder Majewski brings up too, so.
Yeah, and
Might be able to vote on that someday.
Just to add to it quickly, there are municipalities that have addressed it in different ways. They've done wheel taxes, they've done street utility fees, which now are being challenged in court. So everybody is trying to figure out an angle. And for us, this is, back to your statement, how'd you say that? This is how we've always done it. And
We've always never done it.
yeah. But we certainly will take that feedback.
Isn't that a motto underneath the city emblem? I think so.
We'll take that back to the committee because obviously it does create financial challenges for people and, one way or another, if you stay in your home long enough, you're probably gonna end up contributing to that. So duly noted. This will be back at the next meeting, and if there's anything we can answer for Tyson between now and then, we certainly will have his contact information. Okay, next item is Resolution 80, 2024, and that was at Finance earlier tonight. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is Resolution 80 of 2024, a resolution for the City of Stoughton to sponsor the 2024 Stoughton Juneteenth event in the amount of $2,500. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Alderperson Legaki and Alderperson Schumacher.
This is monies to help support that event, as has been requested. There's an example, they've got an example in here of, or was that in here or was that in an email?
That was on an email.
They have some examples of potential some of the expenses that they would incur to be, or what this money would be used for.
Any questions or comments on this one? President Reeves.
Just, I mean, it's in the packet, but just so that everyone's clear, the money had previously been allocated. So it's not new money, it's just money that's unspent. Looks like there's still $10,725 that hasn't been spent. So it's just allowing this part of the money to be spent for that event. So.
All right, any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is Ordinance 13, 2024. That's the first reading from Public Works. Alderperson Majewski.
This is Ordinance 13 of 2024 to amend the City Ordinance Section 64-14, Street Trees, to eliminate the Tree Commission and create a tree committee, and strengthen language within the ordinance to better care for the urban forest. This was approved by Public Works on 3/21 of 24, 5-0. And that's the first reading.
All right. Any questions or comments on this one?
I can go through the Cliff Notes if you'd like.
Go ahead.
In your packet, the yellow is new language that we'd like to propose within the ordinance. Red is language you'd like to remove. So essentially, like Alder Majewski said, I would like to move from a commission to a committee, and basically the committee would be a subcommittee of the Public Works Committee, and they would report back to the Public Works Committee to take any action. So we'd be moving from 8 members to 5 members, essentially going from 5 citizen members to 3, and also only allowing citizens of Stoughton to be on the committee. Before we'd allow up to 1 person that was outside the city. We're going to limit that to only city residents as citizen members. Streets employee would be moved to the city forester. We'd be eliminating the SU member. Essentially, they never did participate. Any issues that they may have, they usually come to us. We bring those forward. And then the Public Works Committee member does not have to be a council member. So now that we do have citizen members on the committees, we want to give them an opportunity, if chosen by the chair of the Public Works Committee, to serve on the tree committee. We also took this opportunity to strengthen this ordinance, to give full authority to us to plant, prune, maintain all city trees. Also stating that no person shall hinder our work to maintain the city forest or urban forest. We strengthened our tree standards or called out the ANSI tree standards, and also called out the utility pruning in the ANSI standards as well. Also, within the ordinance, you'll notice that tree is misspelled. We'll make that correction for the next time. And then also, if somebody were to we want to also prohibit against the harming of public trees and strengthen that. So if somebody chooses to remove a tree without our permission, we do have a way to go back after them to replace the tree and then also charge them for the damage that they did cause. Some of these trees are 20, 30, 40 years old. They all have a monetary value. So we can go back after them for that value of the tree. Violators would go to violations would be part of section 1-3 of the city code. Then the mitigating damages, like I talked about. We feel like that strengthens our ability to maintain the urban forest and also combat any bad actors that choose to remove or damage trees. Any questions at this time?
So, Brett, the history of the tree commission?
Yeah, so good question. So the tree commission was formed back in the mid-90s, I believe. Essentially, we did not have a city forester. So the tree commission actually would do all the contracting for pruning, planting, any tree-related items within the city. The tree commission would actually take on that role. Now that we do have a city forester, we don't feel like that's necessary anymore, and they really haven't been operating in that capacity for some time. So we felt like this was the time to make this change. The tree commission was a part of this process as well. They got a chance to review the language and were supportive of it. So we're looking for your support to move this forward.
All right. I think I saw Alderperson Payton. Did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question regarding nuisance and maybe just like the location of, so these trees we're talking about, tree committee and everything that it would oversee in this aspect is all public trees. But there are some private trees that are within view or create obstructions for public areas. So my question is, how far does the authority extend onto even private property related to trees that may create what by this ordinance is listed as a nuisance? Because especially if you have like an infected tree that has some type of disease that could pass to other trees, like how do you foresee that aspect of the committee's jurisdiction either changing or growing with this adjustment to the ordinance?
Yeah, we strengthened that language a couple of years ago in sections 5810 and 5812 when it comes to nuisance trees. We spent a lot of time with the city attorney to make sure that we're doing everything legally because we are dealing with trees on private property. So that's why the nuisance in section C2 calls out 5810 and 5812. So we want to revert back to that ordinance that's already been strengthened. There's some legal things that we have to do and have to follow to cause somebody to do something on their private property. So that's why that's a part of this, is to bring it back to, or to call it out and to go back to 5810 and 5812. So in this, it doesn't specifically go into the nuisance because that's really more for the private side. But this strengthens our ability to maintain the urban forest in the public right-of-way, in our city parks, or any other city-owned property.
Any follow-up, Alderperson Payton?
No, I think that answers. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. We have Alderperson Schumacher.
Brett, where's the list of desirable trees and ornamental trees maintained?
The city forester has that. I think what we'll do is on the forestry page on our website, we'll have that. If we don't already have that, I'll double check, and if we don't have it there, we'll make that list available.
Okay, do we have, let's see, this is probably a personnel question, I would think. Do we have official city forms aside from, not really.
Forms for the planting of trees.
No, I guess it would be just a document, a living place for such a list like this.
Of existing or of what's allowed, or?
The tree species list, I think we can put it on our website, but, you know, Candy, maybe you and I can talk about if there's a good place to put that on the city's website. We'll address that and get back to you by the next time we meet for the second reading.
All right, I mean, I've got some thoughts and ideas as far as like procedures, forms, all those sorts of things. But
Okay.
that can come in at personnel.
All right,
But
so you're not talking about the current inventory, you're talking about,
I'm just looking for an easier way to be able to get the list on there. You know, sure, it may be on a website, but sometimes those can tend to get outdated. But just
I think what we could do is update that list annually, or if something happens within that year, we can certainly make changes. But I think it'd be nice for the tree committee, if approved, to create that list and then to bring it to Public Works. They can vet that out, and then put that on the website, either on, I think both on our Public Works website and the city's website, and keep that current. So maybe it's a reoccurring thing that we do every January or February, whatever that interval may be. I think we should have that being a recurring annual thing that we update.
Sure, I think that would be good. I guess my point is a little bit larger discussion on structure overall of policies and policies, ordinances, things like that, but I can I can wage that one in personnel.
all right. Any other questions or comments on this one? Otherwise, it'll be back at the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to item number 14, which is a certified survey map, or a CSM, as we refer to it as, for 211 South Water Street. This one came from the Plan Commission. Alderperson Caravello.
Thank you, sir. This is R81 of 2024, approving a plan development specific implementation plan, or SIP, and certified survey map lot line adjustment located at 211 South Water Street, parcel number 0511-082-15520, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Abel. And Phil, can you tell us what a certified survey map is? And why I have this echo again? And then the specific implementation plan.
Waiting for the echo to completely stop. Okay, I tell you what a certified survey map. I'm going to actually have Rick tell us what a certified survey map is. Actually, would be probably better for him to do that than for me to do that, actually.
I would be happy to. I can let you off the hook.
Please let me off the hook.
So with the city, there are different types of, are we figuring out the echo? So there are different types of land divisions. Basically, if it's creating more than 4, you would do a plat. Less than 4, you're doing a certified survey map. Or if you're cleaning up lot lines, you would do a certified survey map. So you're basically, sometimes what happens is you have sort of messy lot lines that have been described through meets and bounds, which is basically saying you go so many feet and then turn right, and it just gets really complicated. So a certified survey map is a way to sort of clean up everything. And here, in this context, what it's being used for is a lot line adjustment. So the 211 South Water Street, obviously it's adjacent to the city parking lot. This lot line would mirror the building footprint of the development. They need to, I believe, build an accessibility ramp so that there's a little extra width that would be provided. No parking spaces are being lost. It's basically just to match the building footprint with the actual building lot.
Yeah, I think the building was actually extended on the city property. So we're trying to correct that as long as we're going through approving the development. And then the other part is the specific implementation plan, which is only needs plan commission approval. The general development plan precedes that, and that needs plan commission and council approval. And maybe you could just briefly explain the difference between those two.
Yes, so a general development plan, or I guess this is through plan unit development zoning. So it's a special type of zoning that I guess it's a way to describe it as flexible zoning. So if somebody wants to make a project work, but it won't necessarily comply with the requirements of any specific zoning district, you have this specialty zoning district called the plan unit development, which grants essentially variances to certain restrictions in exchange for certain aesthetic or other considerations. So it's, I don't want to use the word negotiation, but it's kind of like a negotiation for plan unit development zoning, where you're loosening some of the requirements, but you're theoretically gaining more restrictions on other types of requirements. So with that, there's a two-step process, the general development plan. So the developer submits a plan for what they want to do, the restrictions that they want waivers from, and restrictions that they are going to be going above and beyond what ordinance requirements are. So once that general development plan is approved, that essentially creates the zoning district with the zoning standards they must abide by. And then the specific implementation plan is the actual project that's going to comply with those standards that you've created in this new zoning district. That's sort of the quick summary.
All right, thanks for doing that. And I can tell you that plan director, Chris, especially on the new developments, really wants to take a hard look on the plan development and really try to minimize when those might be utilized so we can stick closer to our zoning codes. But having said that, she's also looking at updating our zoning codes to make them, I don't know, more modern, I guess will be the way I would phrase that. So those are some things that, you know, we'll be working on for the next several months, if not years, as we go through. There's a lot to do when you're changing zoning codes, because some of them are kind of intertwined with others. And I'll let the plan directors and the attorneys figure that out for me, and maybe even some consultants. But we are working with other municipalities who have or are going through that process right now. So we don't have to reinvent all the wheels. We might just have to change a few spokes here and there as we're going through that process. Anyway, back to this. Any questions or comments on the certified survey map or the SIP? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Next item is R82, and that one came from Plan Commission as well. Alderperson Carabello.
Yes, and as you said, this is R82 of 2024, approving a certified survey map, or CSM, to split the property at 1660 Nygaard Street, parcel number 281/051-1-062-8887-2 into two parcels, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by President Reeves. Alderperson Carabello.
And this is to a request to split this property into two parcels. One of the questions that was so that both parcels can be developed with multi-tenant buildings, one of which is already there, and I believe construction is happening on the second one. One of the questions in this was, let me see if I can find this, was access.
Yeah.
And there was a reference in here that says a minimum access easement, and so to the joint parking lot, and that has been addressed with the CSM. And there is one question that I actually had about this as I was reading this, where it said the CSM had been updated, providing a giant driveway access on I'm looking at page 6 of our packet, on sheet 2, which is what I'm looking at, and then note 8 on sheet 4. But looking in here, I don't see a sheet 4, a note 2 on sheet 4, unless I'm missing something, which I might be.
Yeah, not sure what that would be off the top of my head, unless page 4 was actually a different page number. This is something that our interim plan director started, and then it was completed by Chris. And basically the reason they're doing this is they have different ownership groups with the 2 apartments. And if for some reason one of the apartments were sold and the other one wasn't, we would have to provide access for both of them. So that's why the easement became one of the questions. And then they were authorized to get an erosion control permit and an early start while we were going through this process to create the easement in the new CSM. That's about as much as I know, and I wasn't at the Plan Commission meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to, that's one of the things that needed to be addressed, was the access component of this.
And I believe that it has been addressed, but I don't know what that note is, but I can follow up with Chris on Thursday.
Yeah, and it says it should be filed with the CSM and recorded with the Register of Deeds. So yeah, it should be taken care of.
Yeah. And then what happens is when they're recorded with the Register of Deeds, does that come back for us to sign that?
So the CSM, I believe, gets signed by the clerk.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's recorded, I don't think it comes back to the city.
Okay, so we would make sure that Candy has a conversation with Chris about that issue before she signs it. Got that, Candy?
Yes, I do. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor of the ordinance or resolution, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Next item is ordinance 14 of 2024. And this one is one that came from the city attorney, and it went through public safety. So Alderperson Lagaki, can you introduce this one? Okay. 16 is the number on the agenda. It's the first reading. Yes.
This is ordinance number 14 of 2024. To opt out of extending closing hours during a summer 2024 political convention for establishments serving alcohol for on-premises consumption. This is a first reading of this. I so move.
You won't move. It's the first reading, so you won't move.
I'm not moving.
Okay.
But I have some things to say.
You want to say them now? And then
Sure.
if you need additional backup, Rick is here to
Yeah.
provide it for you.
It doesn't matter what political affiliation. There is a state law that when conventions are in town, us being Wisconsin, I'm sorry, I'm adding, us being Wisconsin, are looking at adding, extending business hours from 2 a.m. until 4 a.m. And the convention's in Milwaukee in July. We are quite a bit far from Milwaukee, and we don't anticipate we're going to have a lot of convention goers staying here. And for all kinds of reasons, we just thought it really didn't apply to us, and we have to pass this resolution in order to be compliant with state law. That's my layperson's take. How did I do, Rick?
Pretty good.
Okay.
So this was adopted, again, sort of with like the liquor law licensing changes that the legislature adopted this past year. So essentially, for the duration of a political convention held in the city of Milwaukee in the summer of 2024, the closing hours for establishments in Milwaukee County and surrounding counties, so it applies in Dane County, it goes to Rock County, I think it goes to Fond du Lac County,
Jefferson, Columbia.
So it's quite the range. In those counties, the closing hours for bars or breweries, other types of alcohol manufacturers where there's on-premises consumption, the closing hours would be extended from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. So there's one convention that meets that criteria, and that's the Republican National Convention, which would be held, I think, July 12th through the 15th. It's a weekdays, so it's like a Tuesday through Thursday or Friday. So the state law says that you are automatically opted in unless you pass an ordinance opting out. So it's sort of a policy call for the city. If you want to go with the 4 a.m. closing hours, you don't need to do anything. But if you want to opt out, you need to pass an ordinance saying that you're opting out of the extended closing hours.
There you have it. And my editorial is once again, they passed legislation that requires us to spend more money on the city attorney for really something that doesn't really apply to us. And you know how I feel about unfunded mandates. Alderperson Payton.
My question is, I guess, is it just that we want to opt out because it's unnecessary and we don't want to put, like, it's not a must do. Yet again, it's the businesses can choose to stay open until 4 a.m. if they want, right? Or am I reading that legislation wrong? And would not business owners, even if it's that far away, would they still not say, oh, hey, I can extend my hours and maybe I'll get more business over the course of that? Or what's the downside, I guess?
Yes, you're correct that if you do nothing, the businesses would have the option of staying open until 4. They're not required to, right? They can decide to close their doors whenever they want. So if it's, if no one's there on a Tuesday night at 3 a.m, they could just close their doors. So it's strictly a policy call, whether or not the city wants to do this. It's, again, not required. Just if you would like to keep closing hours to what they are typically, you would choose to adopt this ordinance and opt out. But if the city doesn't care if establishments are open till 4 a.m., then you wouldn't need to pass an ordinance and leave it up to the business owners.
Yeah, and I think our rationale for opting out is we really don't want to encourage people to be out drinking that late, and we don't want to have to potentially have enforcement that late on those types of offenses that could occur. Any other questions or comments? All right, so that's
Class B or Class C establishments were to serve breakfast, would they be able to reopen at 4 a.m.?
It's actually oddly worded where it basically you have to be closed between the hours of 4 and 6, so no breakfast between those hours.
Yeah, it'd be like, what's the place in Milwaukee with the 2 clocks?
George
Webb's. Yeah, you can be like them, right? There's a story behind that, if you don't know that, and we can talk about that after the meeting. All right, this one will be back at the next meeting. Next item is 17, which is the agreement to impose restrictive covenant on the North Municipal Lot to remain a public parking lot. We do have an opportunity to go into closed session. Not sure if we need to do that. Is there anything in the pack one? Let me see where we're at here. And then I'll turn it over to City Attorney Matthew.
Yes, so at the last meeting, we talked about the parking lot lease issue, and the council wanted to at least see what the restrictive covenant option might look like. So we put together a draft agreement. So as I explained before, this is an agreement with the developer where the city would be agreeing to keep the North Municipal Lot open as a public parking lot with certain number of stalls for at least 30 years. There would be certain conditions where that would terminate, such as if the LLC is administratively dissolved, if they were to not be up on their taxes, or if they were to violate any terms of the developer agreement, which hasn't come before the body yet, but would be subject to figuring out this parking situation. So the city would have to maintain it as a parking lot. There would be exceptions for doing maintenance and repairs. There are a couple of things that would potentially we need to negotiate. So two of those, one of them would be the number of stalls. So the developer has requested 85 stalls, a minimum 85 stalls, so the city would be required to keep that amount. And there was also a request to have this also apply to the South Municipal Lot as well. So those are the two sort of outstanding issues. And then I guess anything else that the council may want to discuss or review on any of these terms. So we do have the option of going into closed session. If the council wants to further explore this and discuss this, it might make sense to go into closed session if we're talking about specific terms and our negotiation position, or if you want to just have a discussion about, are we even interested in doing that? That potentially could be a policy issue that could be discussed in open session, but that's up to the council.
Yeah, and what I usually like to do is at least start an open session. If we start crossing the line, we get the signal from the city attorney that we might want to stop there and then go into closed session to discuss that. So when you're speaking, look at Rick, he'll tell you. But I guess generally speaking, they kind of want to at least get a feel for the room and see what you think about this option. And then any questions or concerns that you might have it. And some of those questions we may end up answering in closed session if that's what the city attorney recommends. Anybody have any initial thoughts they want to share? Alderperson Lagaki.
I have a comment and a question. The first comment is, I looked at this, but I didn't heavily read it until this reading when DJ's question came up. I like the terminology about this restriction does not prohibit the city from performing maintenance, repairs, or improvements to the parking lot, which may result in areas of the parking lot being unavailable for parking during these events. So I was worried that he read something, that there was something tying our hands too much. I think that's reasonable. We can improve it. It might not be available, it's time limited. That makes sense, and we don't have any other parking. I'm pretty comfortable with the 30 years. It's been there a long time. I don't think we're going to put anything else but parking there, and maybe improve parking. That would be great if someday we can afford that. My question is, so that's my comment. I like this. My question is near there is the Uniroyal, and we talked creatively, what if we were to be able to miraculously, where the old Vinnie's used to be, get parking spaces there? It's pretty close to this. If we were to be able to supply 85 from existing or to be developed, if we get this windfall of parking, could that be written in? Could that become part of this? Does that give us some flexibility?
So this is a contract, right? So we can kind of draw it up however we want. There's certain bounds, but there could be a potential framework where that would work. And maybe that's something we talk about in closed session. So yeah, I think maybe that's something we talk about in closed session.
All right, Alderperson Payton?
Yes, so for Alder Legaki, my point, the maintenance and everything, that's routine, that should be pretty standard operation. That should be included in any agreement, whether it's the lease or the restrictive covenant. That's not what I was reading. What I'm reading is time. When you lock in for 30 years on a restrictive covenant, unless somebody were to violate terms and default on this covenant, that means that that parking lot will be a parking lot. And if we include the south parking lot, it'll also be the south parking lot. So that means that on the other side, for, I don't know what the future holds for the Set to My event that happened in that parking lot, it has to be a parking lot. There are other things that the city uses for some of these spaces, or could use for some of these spaces, they wouldn't be able to because of the agreement. At least that's how I'm reading the covenant. It has to be a spot. It has to be public parking with the availability for people to park. So to me, not only does it restrict the flexibility of using any of those spaces for events, for future changes, 30 years, like, yes, the lot has been there for a long time, but who knows what's to say in 30 years? The city has grown a lot. Dane County has grown a lot in the previous 30 years. So is there the potential for something to change around that lot? I think it's very possible. We could want more businesses down there. We could want more residential. So by locking it in to being parking for 30 years from now, that's where my discomfort comes.
Alderperson Abel?
I do think we should consider adding some flexibility in here, just based on my own experiences of living in a large city. I was a paying parking lot attendee or parking lot user to the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, and every Saturday I would get kicked out of my parking garage so that the Huskers fans could park there. So I very much so think we could amend that somehow and put that in there. What I just wanted to comment on is that I think we need to get to a point of resolution on this and decide a path forward. I think that there were some really good points and letters made supporting doing a parking lot lease, considering that there are teachers and other young professionals trying to move to the city and help become members of our community, and there's not a lot of affordable housing here, and this is creating an opportunity to do that in the downtown area. I think it'll benefit our businesses. There's also a lot of feedback from our business community that really wants to keep our parking lots accessible, and this seemed like the best path forward for everybody involved. I also think that based on the feedback from our business community, they really don't want us to get rid of our parking lots anytime soon. So I think that should be taken into consideration as well. I support whatever path forward at this point gets us across the finish line so that they can move forward on their project and we can put this to bed.
Okay, Alderperson Majewski.
Yes, so we drafted this specifically for the North Municipal Lot, and we shared a draft with the developer, and they requested to include the South Lot as well.
I'm sorry, I can't
You
hear
gotta turn your
Alder
mic on,
Mayeski.
Tom.
I'm sorry about that. I said because they need 17 spots, but they would need to require over 100 and some spots of parking stalls to be locked in for 30 years. And then, so does this null and void if the developer sells the property?
So this would be running with the land.
Okay,
and
so
yes,
then I
so
would like to see the developer not be able to sell it for 30 years.
yeah, and those are, that might be best to have a closed session discussion about that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And I would like to move to closed session.
Okay, there's a motion to go into closed session by Mayeski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Schumacher. Any discussion before we go into closed session? So the purpose of that would be to talk about specific items that would be negotiable and would really want to focus on them. Is that how you would describe it?
Correct.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, you're right. We do have to have a roll call. Thank you. Somebody's been studying the Robert's rules. Candy, when you're ready, can you do a roll call?
Yes, I'm all set. Mayeski,
Aye.
Reeves,
Aye.
Butler,
Aye.
Lagaki,
Aye.
Wozniak Scanlon,
Aye.
Caravello,
Aye.
Peyton,
No.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Abel.
Aye.
That's 8 Alders in favor.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and then we'll go into closed session.